All right, I think we are on air, Mr. Peter Lavelle. Guys, we are on air. If you hear us, if you see us, tell us in the chat. I am here with Peter Lavelle, host of RT's Crosstalk via Moscow. How is everyone doing today? Guys, if we're coming across on the Hangouts, on the live, let us know in the chat. Is anyone out there to let us know that you hear us? I see you. Okay. Great. Great. Can you guys hear us all right? Peter, you want to say something? See if everyone hears you okay?
Yes. Winter is coming. That means it's dark, and soon it will be dark until 10, and then it'll go dark at 3. So winter has begun. Winter in Russia is not about cold. It's not about snow. It's about darkness.
All right. Everyone hears you well. Scotland, Poland, Netherlands, Napa Valley, California. Awesome. It's great to have all you guys here. This is our 10th live chat. Paul Hunter says, we love Peter. Yeah, Peter is awesome. Greetings from Arizona. Still warm here. Yes, Arizona is warm. From Indiana.
I love Arizona. I love that state. I love Arizona, New Mexico. I love that kind of terrain. Yeah.
From Ethiopia. Great.
Also good terrain. Good turf there too.
Right. All right. So let's begin the live chat, guys. We have an announcement, an unfortunate announcement. Alexander Mercouris won't be able to join us today. He had a family tragedy literally 20 minutes before the live chat started. And our hearts go out to Alexander. He apologizes for not being able to make it. Me and Peter will hold down the fort today.
We'll do the best we can, but Alexander Mercouris is a real anchor for us.
Yeah, we'll do the best we can to answer all your questions. We apologize for this as well, guys. And we will probably keep this live chat a little shorter than the usual 2 hours. We'll try to time it at about an hour, maybe an hour, 10, 15 minutes, and we'll try to give you guys the best that we have. So once again, Alexander Mercouris apologizes. We apologize, and let's all send our prayers out to Alexander. So I am here nonetheless, though, with Peter Lavelle, host of RT's Crosstalk, and we are going to kick off this live chat. Peter, what do you say we get started with Istanbul, Merkel, Macron, Putin, and Erdogan, and they were discussing Syria. So, Peter, what was your take on what happened, or what's going on actually still in Istanbul with Syria?
Very broadly speaking, it was who wasn't in Istanbul that is the most important thing, and that was the United States. It's very interesting now, considering all of the tensions that have been ramped up by Western elites against Russia. Who shows up? Who got on the plane and went where? Went to Istanbul. We have Erdogan now playing. He's the big guy on the playground right now. Putin was there, was very important. Turkey and Russia have had a very difficult relationship in dealing with Syria, but they are engaging each other. They don't always agree, and they always say that. Idlib is essentially turned in temporarily into a frozen conflict. But if you look at everything that the 4 leaders in Istanbul agreed to, when I read through it, and there's a very good article on RT, it just, it's point after point. I love that kind of stuff. You absorb it very quickly. All of the things they're talking about could have easily been attainable years ago. Years ago. All of this has happened in between time with something that could have been done. And it was basically the US and the UK that blocked it. The French are coming around here. Really at the core of all this, why were they all there? They all are very worried about immigration. This is basically destroyed Merkel's grip on power in Germany, the immigration issue. Macron is fighting it left and right too. Europe has had enough. And we have also the Eastern European countries that won't take in any of these people because of wars of choice, stupid wars. So I'm very glad that they came together. It means that they're on the same page. The U.S., like I said, conspicuously not there. The U.S. is playing a spoiler role in Syria. It has no right to be there whatsoever. It has a footprint there, and it shows that Erdogan, after a pretty rocky couple of years, he's got people coming to him. It's a really, really important PR role that he's playing right now to his political base. And his political base is a lot like Trump's political base, put it that way. And what he's been able to do with the Saudis, humiliating the Saudis left and right. I mean, we may never know what he gets out of this, but his bucket list is really rich. He really wants the Saudis to pay. And it makes me believe that they do have the audio and video of Khashoggi's demise. And that's really hanging over the Saudis. I don't think it's going to shake the crown prince from his position. But I think that Saudi Arabia it always had a pretty bad PR image in the world, and now it is really, really tarnished. But the pathetic thing is that money trumps morality. I mean, in every single way. The U.S. Treasury Secretary was in Riyadh for this Davos in the desert thing. It really shows the rank hypocrisy. What right does the United States and its allies have to dictate to anyone about human rights, freedom of speech, the rights of journalists? Not that Khashoggi was an angel. No, he was a player. He was a Saudi, in the Saudi realm as a player. I mean, his relatives deeply involved in the arms industry. Khashoggi himself, by all accounts, withdrew, turned his back on Wahhabism, and was more embracing the Muslim Brotherhood, that's an anathema to the Saudi family. So, you know, the Khashoggi thing is playing out. The Syrian thing is, I mean, on paper, the four leaders meeting in Istanbul is very, very good, but it's going to be inching the process forward. It's essentially trying to sanitize the area around Idlib, and as we speak, street by street, house by house, is being cleared of these terrorists here. See, Erdogan, he wants to get on board with everybody else, seemingly, because he doesn't want to take in these guys. They're going to be flushed out because they came in from Turkey. He doesn't want them to come back. And the Germans, the French, and the Russians have been pretty gentle with Erdogan about this. I mean, he's been part of the problem here. He's trying to save face and to get out of this mess here. Nothing was talked about the Kurds. Again, you know, not everything was discussed, but I actually kind of appreciate that. It's what can you do? What can you do to move this peace process forward and have Syria have its sovereignty under control again? It's a step-by-step thing. There is no silver bullet. There's no magic wand to make this all good. And we have to look too. Turkey is playing a pretty pivotal role. I hope starting to be a positive actor in all of this. But we have to remember, Turkey and Saudi Arabia are very much at odds. And MBS, as they call him, he will exact his revenge, just like probably Khashoggi was at the receiving end of his anger. Now Erdogan has to really watch his back, because the Saudis, they're going to go for him. Mark my words.
Peter, one of our users wants to know, Michael Farshad wants to know, where was Iran in this summit, in this mini summit in Istanbul?
I would well imagine that because of Turkey's relationship dealing with Iran vis-a-vis Syria, and because of Russia's relationship dealing with Syria vis-a-vis Iran, that they were maybe unspoken proxies there. The Russians know exactly what the Iranians want. The Russians don't always agree with everything the Iranians want, and working with the Assad government, they're making compromises, because Assad doesn't want the Iranians to leave completely. They're under invitation under international law. Iran is not given the credit it's due in fighting these jihadists. These jihadists are Iran's enemy, sworn enemy. So they're playing a role there. Really what the Russians are doing, I think, for the Iranians is to what degree, and this is, again, dealing with an Israeli concern, and I know everybody doesn't like to hear this, but this is what geopolitics is made of, is that with these new missiles that are in there, the Russians want to say to the Israelis, now you respect lines, and borders, and we'll get the Iranians to do the same thing, okay, with the agreement of the Damascus government. This is called real diplomacy. It's not just bluster and words. So I think that Iran's interests and concerns were represented in Istanbul, even though it might have not been publicly spoken.
All right, let's since you mentioned missiles, let's shift gears a little bit to the INF Treaty, Peter.
Yeah.
And one of our viewers, Dhruv Singh, wants to know if is the INF Treaty even valid now that you have hypersonic weapons, i.e., Russia and China have hypersonic weapons? What's the reason to even have the INF Treaty, in your opinion, Peter?
Well, first of all, it's part of an arms control architecture and non-proliferation architecture. That's very important to have here. It does put restraint on the United States and Russia going into this specific missile category. I see faults with the treaty, absolutely, for the United States and for Russia. What I don't like is just walking away from it unilaterally. The Americans could have said, hey, we've got a list of concerns here. And the Russians say, well, we got our concerns too. What about anti-ballistic missile defense in Poland and Romania? We got our issues too. So why don't we sit down and upgrade it? Remember when it was signed, it was Reagan and Gorbachev. The Warsaw Pact was still in existence, for goodness sake. Okay? What my concern is do not walk away from arms control. Build upon it. Sure, update it. That will give an initiative to update the New START agreement as well, which no one is talking about. And then by 2021, we may not have any kind of arms control agreements at all. I really worry about that. And Bolton, it's not that he's against this treaty. He's against all treaties, okay? He wants complete unilateral action on the part of the United States. He doesn't want any hindrances at all. I think, you know, Trump brought up the idea of China. Yeah, why don't you bring in all countries that have this missile category? That would be China, potentially Japan. They have the technology. The Japanese could have a nuclear weapon in 90 days, folks, if they put their mind to it. They have all of the components. If they want to put it together, they can have one in 3 months, all right? Pakistan could be involved, China, Iran, the United States, Russia, you know, China, and have a global agreement on this missile category. I think that would be great, okay? No, what they want to do is militarize the Arctic, okay? I mean, they're doing everything backwards. I'm for peace. I'm for stability. I'm for transparency. The U.S. is against all of these things right now. And the U.S. being so aggressive about walking away from the INF, it's going to make the Chinese double down. And the Russians, they already have the technology. It's not going to be a big deal. They have a defensive military posture. They will counter any missile system the U.S. can develop, okay? Because the Russians have no interest in a military conflict in Europe. But apparently the U.S. does. I mean, think about it. In 1987, there was the Warsaw Pact. Now American troops are training Ukrainians on Russia's border. Think about that. I mean, and the Russians, if they react, it's called a provocation. It's aggressive behavior. What world are you living in? Okay, it's all turned upside down. So let me stress here: the INF Treaty is not perfect. It was made in a different era. I agree with Bolton on that, but it doesn't mean you throw away the process, because we ought to get rid of all these weapons. First of all, you have to have control. Then you have to lower stockpiles, be more transparent, and then get to the end game where they're all gone. Okay, that's very utopian, I know. But you got to start somewhere, all right? Now, there are plenty of anti-war people that say, forget all these treaties, it's just demilitarize. It's not so simple, folks. Russia's not going to do that. If Russia were to get rid of all of its nuclear weapons, it would be attacked the next day by the United States. Simple as that. Russia has a nuclear deterrent for a reason.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And that dovetails into the next question from Douglas Flagel. Do you think that the U.S. and Russia will be able to come to an agreement on arms control, given the media environment? We're negotiating equals, treason, appeasement, all the stuff going on in the U.S., the Mueller stuff, everything. Do you think that they can actually sit down and hammer out an agreement, Peter?
No, because there's no will. There's no will on the part of the United States. Hey, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. In 1987, There were Soviet generals that said, go to my shop, don't sign this. You're restraining our ability, our maneuver. Well, in 2018, there's some generals in Moscow saying, good. Now we can do what we want to do. There will be no constraints on us. We don't have to obey this. They're not going to do it. So this does create an environment for an arms race in a category of missiles that were regulated. Now, no. So but with people like Bolton and like Pompeo, no, the last thing they want is to negotiate. They want to dictate. Okay, they don't want, because why? Why doesn't Bolton, for example, want to do this? Because if you're in an arms control negotiation process with Russia, that means you recognize Russia as your equal. No, you're not our equal. We are one. Only one can rule. Only one will have power. Only one will have hegemony. That's how they see it. Okay, so even negotiations is appeasement. It's Munich all over again. This is the neocon mindset. They don't want to solve problems. They want you to do what you're told.
Would you categorize Bolton as a neocon, Peter? Like, strictly speaking, like is he like a Max Boot type figure?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Oh yeah.
All right. Jonathan Bethune wants to know, if America left Afghanistan, do you think that the Afghan society is capable of living in peace?
What I've said for years right now is that you need the neighborhood. You need the bordering countries, particularly Pakistan. There'll never be peace in Afghanistan until Pakistan comes to terms with its level of influence in Afghanistan. It's always been that way, folks, all right? The United States, the different fighting factions in Afghanistan, they're just waiting the Americans out. They waited the British out. They waited the Russians out. It has to be an internal solution working with the neighborhood, not with Western powers. It's gone nowhere at all. And there's no reason for that to stay there. As a matter of fact, people like John Bolton say, we have to stay in Syria or the ISIS will return, or we have to stay in Afghanistan, or else, the Taliban will. No, it's all reverse logic. When the US gives a reason for these groups to exist by occupying their territory. When you leave, you take the oxygen out. Okay. Also, it's about for the Taliban or other terrorist groups, then it's a policy of containment. That's more like a policing job. All right. I mean, you can't. There is nothing else to do with Afghanistan than to walk away from it. Don't you think the Afghan people have had enough of American help? Don't you think?
Yeah, 18 years and running. Peter, before we get into, I want to talk a little bit about the Mueller investigation. Before that, Sam Bethany wants to know, Peter, as a Muscovite, what do you not like about the Putin government?
I think some of their budget priorities. This is going to sound so banal. I think people are going to get angry with me. I think they need to put more money into innovation. Promote small businesses, pensions, and it's a huge topic here in this country because of Russia's demographics. Like in the West, over the next 20 years, there's going to be a lot more pensioners, and they've moved up the age. It's very controversial. Pensions aren't very high. Living in Moscow is pretty expensive. Minor people issues, and budget priorities. Because I live in this building. It was built during, and there's a parlance that we have here. What kind of building you live in? And it's usually by the Soviet leader. So I live in a Stalin building. Okay, it's the only time you ever hear Stalin's name used in everyday life. I live in a Stalin building, and it's pretty cool. Okay, but it's falling apart. Okay, it needs a lot of repair, and most of the people that live in here are pensioners. I mean, I have 3 dogs, and they're active and they're loud and they're running around. But all my neighbors are elderly people. They're deaf. They can't hear my dogs. I don't bother anybody. Okay. So, these are the kind of people issues that I would like to see. Bike lanes. I'd like to see a lot more promotion of that. Over the last 6 months, finally, at the dumpster outside, they have bins for plastic and glass. It took I hate throwing that stuff in the garbage because you can separate it out. That is getting more of ecological mentality here. It's slowly coming. So my gripes are every, bread and butter things. Okay, I mean, I talk to Western journalists and they say, "What about freedom of speech? What about protest?" What? But I mean, most of the newspapers in Russia are against Putin's government. Okay, against the Medvedev's cabinet. Okay, and they're relentlessly criticized for everything that goes wrong in Russia. Medvedev takes it. His government takes it, and he takes it really on the chin all the time. Complaining, protesting, it's in their blood. It's their DNA, everybody, okay? And nobody's afraid to speak out, particularly if you're a pensioner. Oh, man, your government officials stay away from them, okay? Because they come out with their bags and their canes, they'll hit you, okay? And if you don't give them a seat in the metro, you could get the end result of their cane, too. Don't mess with those people, okay? They're not afraid of any government.
Yeah, that's for sure. There's nothing
tougher
than the babushka. Yeah,
you know what I mean.
That's for sure. That's for sure. We have
there was a joke. There was a really funny joke a few years ago. I think it was a meme on Facebook, and they have like surveillance in Washington D.C. All these cameras, surveillance in London. All these cameras, surveillance in Paris, and then they had a picture of Moscow, and it was like 10 babushka grandmothers looking around. They know everything. They see everything. Okay, and they tell each other everything.
That is so true. That is so true. All right, we have some super chats. Thank you, guys. Give us your super chats. We'll try to answer those super chats. They really help us a lot. And also, you can go to the Duran shop and buy a shirt. We really appreciate it when you buy a shirt. And of course, you can donate to our PayPal and Patreon pages. It's all in the description below. And all the donations that you guys give us and all the shirts that you buy really help us to create broadcasts and live chats like this. And we really, really appreciate all your help, all the shirts that you've purchased, all the donations that you've given. So the super chats we have from Aluk to $10. Israel, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, historical hubs of human trafficking. Russia knows who has wronged her people. Okay. Happy Zero gave us a $25 super chat. Peter, is it possible that the nuclear issue is just a distraction? CRISPR in Georgia, biowar. So I guess the question is the INF treaty thing a distraction from what happened in Georgia a couple of weeks ago and the biowarfare that many people are saying is taking place in Georgia?
I don't think they're connected. I mean, this is something John Bolton, he definitely has Trump's ear right now. And John Bolton was against the Iran deal, the treaty of amenity with Iran. Also, he wants to get rid of all of these treaties. He really wants to free America's hand. And John Bolton, his attitude, like towards NATO, I'm sure is kind of ambivalent. If NATO does what it's told, he likes it, okay, and they pay for it. But if you're not going to do it, then punish them and sanction them. I mean, he really is he is an American firster in his own right, a neocon American firster. So I think that the INF was something. It's in his. It's like a bee in his bonnet. This is somehow constraining us because Russia is not our equal. We must not treat them as our equal. They are subordinate to us, and they must yield. And that's it. I don't think it's really connected, those two, not at all.
All right, we got a lot of questions to get to. Peter will do his best to get to all those questions, to answer all those questions. So, Peter, get into what do you think? How do you think Putin came up with the comment about the eagle eating all the olives? Marshall H wants to know. What do you think of that comment?
I don't know. I don't know who came with it, but it's really brilliant. Okay. Basically, the thing is, because how did Putin end the exchange? Remember, Bolton says, "I didn't bring you any olives," and Putin said, "I thought so." So what it really was setting the stage. No BS. Okay. And as a matter of fact, I think the Russians appreciate that. I mean, because Bolton is just going to say, he's going to be flat out. He's not a diplomat. He's never really been a diplomat. He's a bureaucrat. Okay. He's an ideologically possessed bureaucrat. So he doesn't believe in any of these niceties. He actually probably felt really comfortable sitting in the Kremlin because it's going to be cold turkey. It's going to be a short meeting and everyone's going to know where everybody stands when it's over. So, and Putin, of course, likes that. He doesn't like the double talk. talking to people like John Kerry must have made him go crazy. Okay, I mean, really, or or Hillary Clinton, the congenial, a woman that doesn't even know the difference between truth and a lie. Okay, serial liar is what Hillary Clinton is. So I think that John Bolton, he was in his element. Okay, the Russians weren't happy with it, and Putin was just telling him, you only have arrows. That's what you're all about, John Bolton, and your president. And so the Russians have no illusions here. Having said that, the Russians will react appropriately, and they will protect their sovereignty at all cost. At all cost. If Russian sovereignty is violated by the U.S. military or its allies, there will be war, and have no doubt about it.
Do you think that Putin feels comfortable and Lavrov dealing with a guy like Bolton? Do you think they feel like they're in their element with him?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all brass tacks. It's all brass tacks. And I'm sure Lavrov and Putin said, okay, fine, you're going to do this. We told you, walking away from the ABM treaty will create an unstable environment in Europe. Now you're doing this. Now it's more unstable. We know what you're doing in Ukraine. We see exactly what you're doing. We see that you want to militarize the Arctic, and we will react accordingly. We're, no bluster, no slamming a shoe on a table. They're just saying, okay, we got you, and we'll react. We'll get back to you.
All right. Stephen Cunningham wants to know, considering the U.S. economic belligerence towards China, will this bring China and India closer together, especially since India's got increased purchasing power? So what do you think about China and India moving closer together?
Well, what we might get kind of interesting to me is that we might get a new version of the coalition of the willing when it comes to American trade sanctions. The Europeans, the Indians, the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, the U.S. is creating an amazing coalition of countries that otherwise might not work together very closely, but on this issue they will. And what they're going to do, and I've made programs about this, there's a theoretical discipline, and it's called the world beyond the West. And what they're doing, what that means is that the U.S. has its institutions, global institutions, IMF, World Bank, things like that. And what the U.S. is fueling on, like a freight train out of control, it's forcing the world to develop parallel institutions that will do the same thing without the political price tag attached to it. So the U.S. is just, with its behavior when it comes to trade, which I've said many times in these podcasts, there has to be adjustments. There has to be a reassessment of a lot of trade deals, but not in such a belligerent way. Again, Trump is doing a lot of this for domestic consumption, so he can go on the stump and say, this is what I did today. I mean, Alex, he's on the stump every day now, isn't he? I mean, it seems like it. Yeah.
Every day.
He's got to pitch. He's got to get the base fired up. But to answer the question specifically, yes, I think countries like China and India, which actually fought a war, they will find common cause, because common cause is common sense right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. Peter, going back to Istanbul real quick, and then we'll try to move on from the Istanbul meeting. From Sarah Auditor wants to know, following the meeting in Istanbul, what do you think the eventual political solution will be, and what piece of the pie do you think Turkey will get, assuming they get a piece of the pie?
Well, that's probably the best question of all. Excellent question. The thing is that how does Erdogan, how is he dislodged from northern Syria, and how will the Kurdish issue be resolved? That's why he's there. All right. I mean, not only he wants to flex his muscles. He likes his neo-Ottomanism and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like his blackmail of the Saudis. He's saying, what are you going to do? What's my payoff? What do I get? Okay, I was a bad boy. I went in, but I've created political facts. Now you have to create political facts for me to walk it back. Okay. So, I mean, Erdogan, he's really turning into a fascinating leader, world figure of our time right now, okay? Because what he's good at is the bazaar. He's in the bazaar, and he loves to haggle. So it's basically what he's telling everyone, what are you going to give me to walk this back? Because I got to talk to my people, my base. That is going to be the trick. That's going to be the Gordian knot that needs to be cut. And I don't know what it's going to be at this point. But the meeting in Istanbul tells me that he's in the marketplace angling for that as we speak.
Yeah, he is definitely a player in this situation, that's for sure. And we have a 9.99 super chat from Fenderstrut. Just finished Max Hastings' book on Vietnam. Astonishing how little the U.S. has changed. They appear to be congenital idiots. Any tips from the guys on President Putin and recent Russian history?
Well, yeah, the Russians, wow, the Russians have learned empire doesn't pay, and they don't want it. They definitely don't want it. Russia doesn't want to rule over people that don't want to be ruled over. I'll give you the two easiest ones. 2008, Saakashvili attacked South Ossetia. The Russians came in, steamrolled them right out. They could have gone all the way to Tbilisi in a weekend. A weekend. It would have been all over. But they didn't. They withdrew. They withdrew to make sure South Ossetia would never be attacked again. And Abkhazia, man, they won the lottery on that one. We'll go too, okay? And they won the lottery. They didn't have to fight, okay? But the Russians didn't conquer Georgia. Had no interest in conquering Georgia. Ukraine. Look, were there irregulars? Were there people sympathetic to the people of the Donbass in Russia, giving them money, material, even arms? I'm sure of it. Absolutely. Okay. But the Russians could have gone to Kiev in a weekend and occupied it. And what good that it would have done. I know people, there are plenty of people around me who think that's exactly what should have been done. But again, people could make the claim that Russia's occupying people that don't want to be ruled over, and Russia doesn't want to take that risk, and it won't. There are a small number of people that want the return of the Soviet Union, but most people that talk that way are so marginal right now. What Russians want to do is they want to keep what they have. I've said this on this podcast before. Russia's outlook is very much like prior to August 1914. Russia got involved in that war to keep what it has, not to conquer or expand, but to maintain what it has. That's it, Russia in 2008. It just wants to maintain what it's got. And as I said earlier, they will protect it, and they will go to war over it, and that includes Crimea.
Right. Duncan McCone wants to know about Italy's intransigence in the face of the EU's rejection of their budget. What does it mean for Europe? Peter, what does it mean that you have this row between Italy and the EU? Okay, budget stuff aside, the technicalities. What does this say about the European Union? Well, especially Italy being such a big and important country. I mean, we're not talking about Greece or Cyprus here. Yeah.
Well, what's really interesting is that you basically have a new paradigm of government now in Italy that is never seen before. We've never seen before. Is that in the post-war era, you have a populist left and a populist right calling the shots, which is unique. It is an indictment on the establishment, a vicious one, which I'm gleeful over. Okay, what's the beef? Brussels will decide your budget, Italy, and what Brussels is demanding is that if Italy says one thing and gets away with it, guess who else is going to do exactly the same thing? Everybody else is going to do it. This is what it's all about. It's about a precedent. And this is the bureaucrats in Brussels. They're playing chicken right now. But you know what? They live, and I'll use an American parlance here. You'll understand it because they live in the U.S. The bureaucrats of Brussels, they live in one of the best zip codes in Europe, okay? They don't see all this bullshit of all the politics and policies that they inflict upon people in the European Union. No, they live their luxurious life in their palaces and their padded paychecks and all their freebies and all that. They don't see what they do, what other people have to experience, like people in Italy, like people in Greece, all right? And that is what fundamental reason the EU is in such a mess, because these lofty elites don't have a clue how the average person is living in these countries. Italy is going to stick to its guns. Mark my words.
Yeah, I totally agree with that assessment. I mean, in Greece, when the European Union was really sticking it to us, so many people in Greece were saying, what the hell do these people in Brussels know about what it's like to live here?
Let them eat cake, you know. That's what their attitude is.
And that is the globalist mindset. And on that note, Peter, Pax Bella poses an interesting thought, and I want you to develop it a little. Says, I think that Trump, pretending to be a buffoon, intentionally is breaking apart globalist organization. For my own opinion, I don't think Trump is a buffoon. I think a guy is incredibly smart. I don't think he could become a billionaire in the real estate industry in New York City by being stupid, and then become a reality TV star, and then become president of the United States. So I think he's far from a buffoon. But what do you make of the way Trump plays to the audience, and you know, does his rallies, which seem almost like a TV show at times? I mean, almost like a stand-up routine to get everyone fired up. And he is breaking apart the globalists in a way, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that the globalist empire that his predecessors built, there was consent of the people that were being ruled. I mean, you know, it's basically called leadership capture. See, what the U.S. and its allies, they capture elites, like Poland or in Hungary. They capture their elites, and the elites get what they want: fame, power, prestige. Okay, and they kind of go along with it. But see, what Trump is doing is that he wants everybody to and kneel, because America is number one. It is morally superior because of its exceptionalism. And what the other countries that were involved in this globalist project, they're saying, but you know, where's our perk now? I mean, okay, we do what you say. We throw in a couple of battalions when you invade a country. You know, we give you backing, diplomatic backing at the UN. We say all the right things, but you're taking all those things away from us. But you still want us to be in the club. See, they say, look, our club fees are what we do for you. And Trump says, I don't care about that. Okay, you're going to do what I say, because I want American energy companies to be making money in Europe, not Russian. And the Europeans will say, but we are in NATO. We're spending money on it, you know. And Trump, see, this is this unilateralism, and this is he is disrupting this globalist system in a very energetic way, and people don't know how to react to it. We started with the podcast with Istanbul. I mean, Macron and Merkel went and kissed Erdogan's ring without the United States. This is significant here. This is very significant, because a number of issues that we see a division in the Atlantic Alliance, which I'm all for. Okay, I think the Europeans should take care of themselves. I mean, they got more GDP wealth than the United States, more collectively. Okay, you can, and if Russia is a real threat, you have the means and the money to do it. But Russia isn't a threat. That's why you won't pony up. Okay, and this is what's creating this huge division right now. And for me, it's the Europeans are afraid to embrace their own destiny. They have this opportunity right now because the United States is an adversary to Europe. They're just too dumb, naive, and greedy and lazy to understand it. It's remarkable. Okay, and look what's going on with Brexit. Theresa May wasn't in Istanbul, and nobody cares anymore. Who cares? They made themselves so irrelevant, an international joke. Okay, I was just reading today. I mean, they're expecting the GDP to contract. They're expecting over the next 20 years, the average mean income is seeing declines right now. Well, thanks, Tony Blair, and all your nonsense. This is what this Blairite neoliberalism does. It impoverishes people, but not the elites, okay? And they will be punished for it eventually. Watch.
Yeah, it definitely punishes the average person, and it also creates a lot of division. And I want to focus in a little, Peter, on two questions which actually are very related. And Vinod Vasan gave a question before we started the podcast. He says, can progressives and conservatives find common ground? And just now, Peter, Sam Berhanus asked a very similar question. He wants to know, as RT host and conservative, what do you think about, what have you done to unite progressives with conservatives? Would you ever invite Lee Camp or Jimmy Dore to your show? You've been on the Jimmy Dore show, actually.
I've been on the Jimmy Dore show. And
so address progressives and conservatives and some of the things they have in common and everything.
Lee Camp has been on my program. It's a few years ago. Look, in politics, if you're being honest and have a goodwill and be transparent, which none of those things exist these days, you're never going to get everything you want. Okay, so if you go in with a sense of goodwill that this is going to be a negotiation and everyone needs to get something out of it. I'm really very disappointed with progressives. Their attitude towards free speech, which I think they have walked away from to a great degree over the last couple of years. I think that they could be much more robust and vigorous when it comes to anti-war. The thing is that this Trump makes his enemies go crazy and do stupid things. I think this Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yeah.
I mean, let's leave politics to the grown-ups. Okay, I'm sorry if progressives are listening to me right now. You're this hope for a socialist utopia. If we just get rid of capitalism, I don't like capitalism. I'm not a big fan, actually, but I am a big fan of the individual and individual initiative, and I believe in property rights. I mean, if you don't have those things, then you just have tyranny. And I lived in communist countries, and they ain't rich, all right, and they're oppressive. And anyone that says, and I know I'm going to step on some toes here, but those people misunderstood it. They didn't understand socialism. They didn't understand Marx. Marx understood about capitalism really well. I give him that. He was a great philosopher. He didn't know jack about socialism, okay? And what happens is that power tends to corrupt, and absolute power is absolutely corrupting. And I've seen it with my own eyes. So as a conservative, I believe in speech. I believe in being in property rights. I believe, and on top of everything, I believe in the family, because the state, liberalism destroys the family. And then it creates this tribal effect here. Women are married to the state. Men are there to generate tax collections for the state, okay? Families break up because of that, all right? This is what socialism does. This is what the left does. They create their constituencies, Black, Hispanic, gay, trans. I believe in values. I don't believe in these kind of descriptions. These are, I'm beyond identities. I don't care what your color is, what your gender is. If you believe in the family, you believe in God, you believe in free speech. Those are the things that I find in common. I don't understand or agree. I'm fundamentally against these categorizations of people. I'm against categorizing people by traits they're born with. I mean, that is nonsense. This war on patriarchy, it's all an illusion. It's an illusion. It's all nonsense. Hierarchies can be corrupt, and you need to address that. But everything is hierarchical. Lobsters are hierarchical. Trees are hierarchical. Everything has a hierarchy. The point is that if it is corrupt, then you have to adjust that, confront that, and fix it. Look, folks, we're not all of the same intelligence. We're not all of the same abilities. Thank goodness. That's what makes individuals what they are. All right, and we have to have compassion. You know, we had a guest today visiting from the United States, and he broke his ankle by accident yesterday on Red Square. And everybody around him, people picked him up. People made sure he got a wheelchair, made sure he got some crutches, made sure he had his medicine. Nobody had to do that. The state could have done it. No, people did it. People make a difference. Okay, so I just get a little frustrated with my progressive friends when they look to the state to solve so many problems. The state, in a lot of ways, is the problem. And the state likes these categorizations of people. That's where they generate their power, and how they keep it. And they divide people. And that's my fundamental problem with a lot of progressive thoughts. I know a lot of good progressive people that, the anti-war thing. Jimmy Dore. I mean, I love Jimmy Dore. I love Jimmy Dore.
Go into that, because a lot of people are saying that Jimmy Dore is a true progressive. Lee Camp. I agree with that, and I love Jimmy Dore too, and Lee Camp. But there are progressives, like I was very disappointed, for example, Peter, with Bernie Sanders. The minute that he got cheated out of the primary win, I mean, he folded right in line with the Hillary Clinton machine, with the Democrats. Instead of moving forward, maybe creating his own party, speaking out against the corruption that he was a victim of. I mean, he was a victim of that corruption.
Maybe one day we'll find out what really happened, but when he was at that pinnacle, man, he could have been a game changer. I would have supported him. I would have, with enormous reservations, okay, because he was going to break the spell of the nonsense that runs the political system in the United States. It would have been a real game changer. Would have he lost? Maybe, but we would have gotten an entirely new movement. See, right up to the, because the issue of slavery was never resolved by what would become the Republican parties. What were they called before? They were called the Whigs. A lot of people don't know that, but it was the Whig Party. Abraham Lincoln was the first Republican because he stood up and he said, a house cannot stand divided, okay? Bernie Sanders could have been that. He could have been an Abraham Lincoln moment, and then the Democrats would have disappeared. They would have crumbled, okay? But no, he gave them energy. He gave them oxygen to breathe, to continue their path of destruction and nonsense, okay? I'm very disappointed with Bernie Sanders too, because that was a genuine movement. That was real, okay? A lot of this stuff that people want to talk about, I would say, oh, well, you know, power, talking about it and being in power is another thing, but it would have been a kind of a fresh start that the U.S. has never happened since Trump. But Trump is very complicated, and I hope everyone knows watching these podcasts that we have Alexander Mercouris, Alexander Christoforou. We all have our worries and doubts and concerns about, particularly like in foreign policy. I say build the wall in a heartbeat. I have no problem with that. Okay.
What do you make of the fact that conservatives and progressives do have some common views and common values? For example, anti-war. There is no anti-war movement, but you can take someone like Lee Camp or Jimmy Dore, or you can take a conservative who's very non-interventionist, or a libertarian like Ron Paul as well, and they all agree that the wars are stupid.
Yeah.
But there's no movement around it. What's going on there, Peter? You think?
I think it has to do what it means to be conservative and what it does mean to be a progressive, because we can agree on war, but I'm against abortion. Okay. It's these things. It's these deeply like gun control. I'm against gun control because I think the problems with violence in America is not guns, it's people. Okay, that's where progressives will say no. Okay, it's these bread and butter things, you know, the death penalty, all these kind of things here. That's what really divides us. Okay, and of course, I think that faith and churches play a role in public life, and progressives don't like that either. This is the problem. But I don't lose heart. I mean, if we could get, you know, if all my progressive friends and I can get my real conservative friends, forget the Republican Party, I have nothing to do with them. Okay, nothing. Okay, talking about conservatives. If we get conservatives together and we got progressives together and applied all our pressure, everything, every ounce of energy to end that war in Yemen, I bet we could do it. I bet we could do it. Okay, like I said, when you interact trying to get a political outcome, you have to compromise. And I would be able to compromise with my progressive friends. I'm sure they would be with me on this one issue. Then that starts a conversation, okay? And I think that's where we have to be. But, you know, you have the establishment Republicans and the establishment Democrats that take money from the same people. That's why Bernie blew it. Bernie blew it.
Peter, we had some questions earlier in the live chat dealing with Mueller and the investigation. It is winding down. There was an article on Politico, which I saw as trying to kind of level set everybody, not to expect, you know, this big.
Soft landing, soft landing.
Go into that a little bit, Peter. It seems that the whole, you know, Trump was a Manchurian candidate groomed by Vladimir Putin 10 years ago is essentially falling apart, and that Mueller will come out with some sort of document that he may not even release to the public. He may not even release it. And
Rod Rosenstein might not release it to the public.
Right. Rod Rosenstein might not release it. And so it seems that as the midterms approach, Mueller may have served his purpose.
Served his purpose. It's
go into that a little bit.
No coincidence. He's going to file his report after the midterms. Okay, he's probably sick and tired of doing nothing all day because there's nothing to do. Okay, there was nothing to investigate. There was no crime. Okay, it was the most ridiculous 17 months in American history. And because given the likelihood, though I don't trust the polls, given the likelihood that the Democrats will take back the House, they'll have a new series of investigations. Okay, they don't need this anymore. They don't need it. It served its purpose. Is to and it worked with the establishment Democrats and Republicans because they wanted to steal foreign policy away from Trump, and they did it effectively. They did a great job. The media did a great job. They stumble and bumble and all the way through this whole thing, but they win. They win. They have won because once the midterms are over and the Republicans are in the House, the gavels change hands, and then they're going to have their own agenda of investigating the Trump family. That's what they're going to do, his family. Oh, and the Khashoggi thing. Well, now we have a Saudi angle to it, okay? And Trump has a lot of extensive financial dealings with the House of Saud, okay? And he may live to regret it. I think it may explain his hesitation here. But no, Mueller's, it's just, it will be like it never happened. Oh, well, nothing to see here. Move along. So how many lives were destroyed? You know? And that's why I say, if it is a soft landing, Trump is going to pardon them all. Okay, Papadopoulos, you know, people like that.
Papadopoulos is taking the legal route, as is Carter Page, and as they should.
Oh, they're gonna have such a nice payday. Oh, a nice one, a real nice one. Hang on there, Papadopoulos. Hang on, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got a hot wife, and she needs a nice car. Okay?
Peter, you mentioned Khashoggi. Do you think that's also going to fade away now, or do you think the story still has some
They certainly want it to fade away. They really want it to fade away. See, the thing is that they don't give a rat's ass about the Crown Prince, okay? I mean, he obviously is a bungling idiot and a murderous one probably at that. But they need the House of Saud, okay? That's what they don't care about him. They're going to have to. It's going to be very awkward in dealing with Saudi Arabia. It's like, can I meet your nephew? Okay, you know, I know he might be busy. You know, maybe we can meet in Paris. I don't really want to go to. You know, it's going to be kind of like that. Okay, I don't know the inner dynamics of the House of Saud. Honestly, I don't. We'll see where that goes. The reputational damage is so huge. It's so immense. But it looks like the powers that be. Money trumps credibility and honor and morality and anything else that we hold of value. So that will continue. I would just hope, you know, politics is such a strange thing. You know, now I'm kind of on Erdogan's side. You know, it's like kind of weird. You know, like, you know, just get him to stop that war in Yemen. Damn it. Okay. I mean, I know he wants other things. Okay, but if Erdogan could pressure them to get rid of that, end that horrific humanitarian crisis. That would be great. Yeah, I think this is going to be a festering sore for a long time. And I don't think the Crown Prince is ever going to live this one down. And they still got the tapes. Erdogan's going to say, oh, by the way, you know, I could release the tapes. Oh, okay, I'll take another 50 billion invested in this sector. Oh, and, you know, stop bothering the Qataris, okay? They're my friends, okay? Back off them a little bit. I mean, I talked on Crosstalk today. We have Martin Jay. He's a journalist, and he's based in Beirut. And he said the bucket list is long, and we'll see what Erdogan gets out of it, okay? He'll milk this thing for a long time. He enjoys this. He's having a great time.
He'll get his pound of flesh, that's for sure. Erdogan would not let MBS off the hook that easily. Peter from Pax Bella wants to know, can you please bring up the UN document which is set to make immigration a human right? Does Russia favor such a document?
Yes, Russia agrees on asylum laws. Economic migrants, no. See, one of the interesting things that happened in Russia is from 1991 to about 2008, the financial crisis, Russia had very porous borders, and you had a lot of people from Central Asia coming to Russia. And a lot of people don't know this in the world, but Russia is second in place after the United States of receiving immigrants from abroad. And but in 2008, with the economic turndown in Russia, a lot of them left and went back south. But when the economy started picking up here again, about 2 years later, Russia started putting a lot more restrictions. See, if you're in the United States and you're undocumented, illegal alien, that's a legal term, folks. You know, it's not being racist. Illegal alien is the legal term. There's no such thing as an illegal alien in Russia, because if you get caught, oh, bad news, because that's breaking the law. Russians take that very, very seriously. You'll be picked up, you'll be processed, and you'll be thrown out. No CNN, no MSNBC, no babies being taken from their parents. No, you broke the law. Get out. And if we find you again, because now they're computerizing everything, we won't let you in. Okay? And you'll have to go through the hoops legally. You can legally come to Russia. It's not easy. And I fault the Russian government for that.
Yeah, you get on the blacklist in Russia if you break the law on immigration, and you're never getting back in, or at least you're not going to get back in for a good 7 to 10 years. That's the way it goes.
But I really want to stress here is that you know, this kind of Americanizing immigration, you know, making it universal. No, Russia has its own specific needs. Okay, and it is very generous. See, the difference is here is that if you come from like Tajikistan or Kyrgyzstan, and if you can make it into Russia, if you can make it to Moscow, you hit the lottery. You learn the language, you learn the customs. You probably already know the language. You've been dealing with Russians for centuries. There's a real assimilation process that is so different from someone like from maybe the Dominican Republic that has never been to school, doesn't know any English at all. See, a lot of the migrants that come here from Russia's soft underbelly, they already know about Russians, the Russian language, their customs, and all of that. So the transition, and if you keep your nose clean, you can do well. There's a store, you know Dixie stores, Alex. You know, yeah. I mean, this is for poor people. Okay, it's super discount, full of people. They're all from the same village in Tajikistan, the same village, all of them, and the nicest, wonderful people, hardworking, backbreaking work sometimes. They are thrilled to be here, thrilled. Okay, but you know, there's no chain migration. There's none of that. It's hard work, and you have to earn it. It's not your human right. You have to earn it to have it, and that's the way it should be.
All right, Michael Julian has a question. He wants to know if President Putin essentially will be going to Paris and will tell Trump bluntly that if the U.S. launches nukes against Russia, they will launch them in Europe. I don't know about that question,
but I mean deploy.
Yeah, deploy. Sorry, deploy. Yes. Go into the Paris Trump summit that's going to take place, and how these two guys are going to interact. And also, Peter, is it going to really be a summit, or are they just going to speak on the sidelines?
Sidelines. From what I understand, it's going to be sidelines, because it's going to be the anniversary of the end of the First World War.
The end of the First World War, yeah.
It'll be a few days after the midterms. I can answer that question with more clarity once we know the midterms results, because Trump is going to be wounded in Congress, which is, you know, when you think about it, it's just so stupid. I mean, they controlled for 2 years. 2 years! What did they do? Not much. You could write it all in the back of a matchstick, okay? So I mean, I'm not really sure that Trump is going to be really lamenting it. I mean, he has control of Congress, and they didn't do anything for him. So the thing is that from an outside perspective, from Putin's perspective, if Trump is going to be constantly under investigation, and it means the U.S. is going to get more, in one way, more absorbed internally. The bad thing about that is that people like Mike Pompeo, who wants to be president one day, no doubt. And then you have John Bolton, you know, he's like in Disneyland now, having anything. He's on every ride he wants, and he can raid every candy store. They could be more dangerous. So people like Putin and the Chinese are going to be watching this kind of weird dynamic play out, because domestic politics will be very much absorbed. I don't. If Trump loses in the Republicans lose in the House, I think RussiaGate kind of fizzles because it's not a weapon anymore. They got their power back, and the Republicans are not going to lose the Senate. I mean, I can't imagine that right now. So it's going to be a very, very weird sense of deadlock with the Trump's foreign policy advisors kind of being given a free hand. I think it's fair to say that Donald Trump really doesn't have much. After 2 years, his learning curve on foreign policy, it's flat as far as I'm concerned, okay? He wants to build the wall. He wants better trade deals. This is what he wants, okay? That's why he's kind of flat-footed with Saudi Arabia, because I just want their money. Okay, I don't care what they do to their journalists. I think that's probably what he thinks, okay? So this is going to be a very strange. It's been strange for 2 years. It's going to get stranger in the next 2 years. But I will make a prediction. If the Democrats treat him in such a shabby way, that may be the way he gets reelected in 2020. See, this is a weird, you have to think counterintuitively. You say, the media is against them, the House of Representatives against them, Hollywood is against them, all of them, and he's still going strong. See, I'm an American, and there's this underdog feeling. You don't do that. You end up having sympathy. Even if you weren't a Trumper, you'll say he's getting a raw deal, and that will create sympathy for him. All right, and we see it at these rallies. I mean, it's amazing. I've never seen a midterm president go to rallies like that. Not in my lifetime. Never. So it's out there. Okay, so. The world is bewildered with the United States. Is going to get even more bewildered.
I mean, if it's going the way it looks like, and the Democrats will take the House, they won't take the Senate, but they will take the House. I think, Peter, they're going to have to, without a doubt, they're going to have to go after Trump. Very aggressively, because their base is going to demand it.
Exactly. I mean, you have the Pelosi's and the Schumers, two schmucks. I mean, oh my God, talk about swamp creatures. They just want everything to go back to normal. They want their power back, okay? They want to be able to give out their little candy to their little minority identity followers, okay? But the base, they want blood. They want to go after them, okay? They will have investigation after investigation after investigation. Maxine Waters is going to have a gavel. But think about that. Oh, my God.
So, I mean, Trump is going to be so absorbed in this domestic infighting, all this fighting and all these investigations after investigations that they're going to open up on him. Would it not be fair to say that Bolton and Pompeo are going to pretty much have a free hand when it comes to foreign policy, geopolitics, dealing with Russia, dealing with China, dealing with Saudi Arabia in the Middle East?
I think that's a very fair assessment. Thank God Nikki Haley's gone.
And Douglas Flagel wants to know, who do you think will be Nikki Haley's replacement as ambassador to the UN? Do you have any predictions, any ideas who might take that position, Peter?
Probably someone just as bad or worse. Well, you and I have kind of in a lighthearted way. I mean, Ivanka would be fine with me. It wouldn't bother me at all if you appointed her. What I think is interesting about Nikki Haley, and maybe I'm the first one to think about this, but I think she might be on the ticket for 2020, dropping Pence. Yeah. I think that's it. Mm-hmm.
So you think that's the reason she?
I think she wants to make some money right now. Okay, yeah. She's going to be on all these boards and think tanks and all this. She's cashing in a book that she probably won't even write, but it'll have her name on it. She'll go on tour. She'll go to all the reddest of red meat places, and talk up all of this war. But she'll have to be very specific in doing that because the base really isn't that way. But they'll finesse it here. I think it's going to be Trump's secret weapon in 2020. And I think that, objectively speaking, it might not be a bad idea. I think she's a horrible political figure. I'm glad to see she's out of the UN, but they'll get someone just as worse. Okay, believe me. The U.S. has absolute contempt for the United Nations. It will be, I don't know the name, but it will be a Bolton designated person. Bolton will sign off on it because we've got to remember he had that chair at one time.
All right, we're close to 800 viewers, guys. We are going to be cutting this live chat. We won't be going 2 hours. We'll be going about another, say, what do you say, Peter? Another 10 minutes?
10, 15, yeah.
10, 15 minutes, guys.
I love answering questions because for a living, I ask questions.
and you're doing a great job. So let's shift gears. There's a couple of questions, Peter, about the EU and Serbia joining the EU and also joining NATO. What do you think about that? Do you think Serbia will ever, fall in line with the EU and NATO, or do you think they'll be able to resist?
Well, it depends on elite capture. If they can capture the elites and have these elites cater to the demands of Brussels and the United States, it might happen. I think if you gave it to a vote to people, I think it's still a bit early. I think asking. Voting on joining NATO after what NATO did to Serbia in 1999. Okay, I think that's too fresh in their memories. All right, I think as far as joining the EU, I mean, the UK wants out. I mean, Italy is saying, it's our rules or no rules. Look at the Hungarians. The Poles are under sanction and censure.
What about Ukraine? What about Ukraine?
Yeah, well, if they join the EU, then the EU they'll rob the place. It'll be broke in a week. Ukrainians, let them join NATO. NATO will be missing all of its planes, all of its ammunition. Everything will be sold off to somebody. Okay, Lord of War, one of the greatest films ever made, and it's not about Russians. It's about Ukrainians. Okay, no. The Germans and the French won't let Ukraine into NATO. No way. Okay, they won't. All
right. Got a $5 Canadian dollar super chat just joins the chat. Have you guys talked about the mail bomber and how suspicious the timing is? I believe it's been settled. I mean, with the mail bomber, has it not, Peter? I mean,
yeah. I mean, from what we've learned, I mean, it was a pretty bizarre character. How he flipped from being a liberal to a conservative, that hasn't been explained. I thought the van with all the stickers on it was kind of weird, but the whole story's weird. What's most important, it's tragic, okay? It's so tragic. And let's wait for more facts. I mean, a dozen families lost a loved one. I think that's what the story is here. The mindless violence that goes on. And that, I'm very critical of the gun debate, because the gun debate never resolves anything. I think that we're asking the wrong questions. Why is there so much hatred and so much violence in the United States? That's what we need to look at, not at guns. The thing is that because it's so close to the elections, people want to see a political angle. Well, I don't see any political angle. I mean, objectively speaking, all I see is a horrific tragedy that will only divide people more. It's people on both sides of the divide will use this story for political ends, and that's shameful. It's absolutely shameful, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. I don't think there's much of a political angle, if any, but unfortunately, they will use it for political gains. I think that's just become part of the norm. Yeah, just the norm, unfortunately. Peter, is EU going to be sanctioning Poland? Do you think Poland's going to fall under EU mothering, so to speak?
The thing is that I was in Poland the day they entered the European Union, and I told them they're making a huge mistake, because think about joining the European Union like getting involved in a trade discussion. What kind of dispensations you get, what kind of privileges you get, one thing, what can you delay, like abortion is a big issue, okay? So you get an exemption for that. See, the Poles didn't get a good deal, okay? They went from one imperium to the next too quickly. And for Poles, self-determination is very important, and I know it gets under the nerves, under the skin of a lot of Poles. Now it's not Moscow telling us what to do, now it's Brussels. Okay, what's really interesting about Poland, the majority of Germans, recent polling over the summer, they want American troops to leave. Okay, it's time for them to leave. But Poland, they want American troops, so they'll even pay for a fort and call it Fort Trump. See, Poland is very much out of sync with the European Union in many, many ways. And it's not a good fit, okay? Because the European Union is one size fits all, and that's an illusion. But that's totalitarian, okay? Not everybody in the European Union, not by a long shot, okay? They're not the same people. They have different cultures, they have different experiences, and Poland is going to continue to push back. It's definitely going to push back. And it's going to be a sign for the rest of the European Union, for people that have their own grievances. This is, what's going on with Italy and the budget, what's going on with Poland right now. These are important precedents, and this is the worst nightmare for Brussels, the worst. They have to continue this game of chicken. And once they start sanctioning them, then why would Serbia want to join? Okay, why? So we get sanctioned too? What are the benefits of being in the European Union? They don't have any money anymore. Okay, so there's a lot of countervailing trends going on right now. The EU is in a bad place. It's in a bad place, and until they really start dealing with the democracy deficit, because it's huge in the European Union, it's going to continue to frail. I think I've said this before. The European Union promised you two things: prosperity and security. You don't got either right now, and it's getting worse.
Yeah, which takes us to Brexit, and we'll end it on Brexit, Peter. And Blizzard Veritas actually has an interesting comment, and I want you to develop it a little and talk a little bit about Brexit. I want you to talk about Brexit from RT standpoint. Blizzard Veritas says RT is the one channel where Brexiteers don't get insulted. And I agree with that. I think that RT has a pretty balanced take on Brexit. They try to cover both sides of it, where I imagine, actually I know by watching the BBC and Sky News and all the other the UK mainstream media, I mean, they just take the exact opposite position. They're not balanced at all. So get into that a little bit on Brexit and how the media, especially RT, covers Brexit, and how the other media, the mainstream media in the UK and the US cover it.
RT doesn't have a dog in this game, okay? It's a legitimate, I mean, you have a polarized society in an important country. The UK is an important country in the world. And the European Union is one of the most important trading partners that Russia has. The European Union and NATO overlap. So, I mean, Russia is watching, and RT is doing a super fantastic job of covering Brexit. I mean, I don't see any bias at all. I mean, we have a lot of Brits that are presenters, and I know their private feelings, but I don't see it on air, okay, at all. So I think RT is doing a huge public service. But and I have to be careful with my words here. There are certain powers that be in the UK that don't like RT's balanced coverage of it. I'll have to leave it at that, okay? Yeah, we've done a wonderful job in covering it. I've learned a lot about Brexit through RT because of the different opinions that are shown. And sometimes it gets really quite heated, but it's really quite fascinating. I wish Alexander Mercouris were here now, because this is a train wreck. I mean, you're going over a river and there's no bridge, okay? And I don't know how it's going to get to what other side they're trying to get to. It's Theresa May and the Tories just really just cocked this one up so badly. And that's what their legacy will be for a long time to come.
Yeah, they are in the ocean, it seems, without a paddle, without a sail, without any engine. They're just floating aimlessly around, and no one knows what her policy is, what her strategy is.
We have to have military maneuvers in the Arctic because Russia's threatening us. I mean, like, change the story. Nothing to look here, go over there. I mean, this whole bombastic, and it really is unfitting of the UK as a former great empire. I mean, their bluster and trying to show that they're some kind of major military force in the world. I mean, what is the French and the British? They share one aircraft carrier, and it doesn't even work. Okay, I mean, great power, great military power.
All right, we got a $10 super chat from Courtney. Guys, great show as usual. Love the Duran and crosstalk. I hope everything will be okay with Alexander. We send him love. Thank you, Courtney. We hope so too, and we will send your well wishes to him as well. Heidi Lukel sent us a €5 super chat. Thank you very much for that super chat. No question. And Peter, we will end it on this note, and I want you to answer this question: would you ever have Nigel Farage on crosstalk?
Sure. Why not? Look, my litmus test is this: If you're a public figure and you're part of the public debate, 90% of the time I'll have anyone on. Okay, I don't believe in inciting violence. I don't like derisive language towards minority groups, whatever minority group is. You're born the way you're born, okay? And criticizing people for their born traits is off limits for me. I've had communists on, trade unionists on. I've had socialists. I've had extreme capitalists, conservatives. I've had everybody. Everybody. I believe in free speech. That's my primary mission in media. More speech is better. If it hurts your feelings, well, grow up. Okay, that's how you understand the world. Okay, through using what's in between your ears. Okay, shutting someone off, you're just dumber. Okay, dumber. Nigel Farage is a piece of work. That guy is amazing. He'd probably sell his grandmother for Brexit. Okay, that's his shtick. Okay, that's the way he is. All right, he's not stupid, and I don't see that he has ulterior motives. But we shouldn't always even really think about motives. He's got a good argument. Well, that's what I like. That's my line of business. Arguing with people in a respectful way. Okay, respect. You have to respect your opponent. This is what's dying in the West right now. They demonize you. You're evil. You're immoral. No, I don't do that with people I disagree with.
And Farage stuck with his guns for a decade almost, maybe 15, 20 years to get to the point where he did change the world eventually.
Yeah. I mean, okay, well, he's a talented person. He has an opinion. And under the current laws, I mean, we didn't even talk about how the EU is outlawing a criticism of Islam. This is totalitarianism, you guys. This is the slippery slope, okay? Jeez. Oh, you can spit and piss on Christianity all you want in the European Union, and nobody's going to do anything about it. This is the path to the end. Everything that we built for 2,000 years, everyone's trashing. You idiots! Then they're going to come for you eventually. Don't you see that? Don't you see that? For me, it's insane.
Yeah, the European Union is about to ban memes on the internet because they find them harmful. The news about Gab pretty much going the way of Alex Jones.
I find the European Union offensive, okay? Yeah. In their whole ideological project. Nobody voted for that. No one. Only the elites in their palatial palaces, with separating from the people by big moat. Okay, they're deciding all of these things. Nobody voted on it. Okay, democracy deficit.
Yeah, and on that note, we will end this live chat. This was our 10th live chat, Peter. Our 10th live chat. So, guys, thank you very, very much for joining us on this live chat. We went a good hour and 20 minutes, Peter. Thank you, Peter Lavelle, for answering.
Always enjoy it. Always
so many questions. You did great. Guys, thank you for tuning into this live chat. Thank you for your super chats. Thank you for everybody who has bought a t-shirt. Please buy a t-shirt. It really helps us out.
Tell a friend. Tell a friend. Tell a friend.
Tell a friend about the Duran. Click the subscribe button. Click that notifications bell to make sure that you get notifications every time we push out a new video. You will find links to our PayPal and Patreon. Please donate. It helps us out a lot as well. Peter, let's see. Nico says that Peter is the man. Blizzard Veritas says, love you, NRT. Thank you very much. And everyone sends their condolences to Alexander. We will pass it on. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Next week, we will be back at it again, and hopefully we will be able to do a 2-hour show. We will see as the week progresses, and of course, we will have a lot more interviews and a lot more news on the channel. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We really, really appreciate it. Peter, any last words, any last thoughts as we close out live chat number 10?
Okay. Speech. Never let anyone take it away from you. Never. And defend other people to speak, even if it really, really hurts deep in your bones. You'll be a better person, and the other person will be as well. Really, I firmly believe this.
Amen to that. Peter Lavelle, host of RT's Crosstalk. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, everybody. Have a great Sunday. Take care of yourself. Relax. Have fun. Today's the day of rest. Peter, Thank you once again, guys.
See you soon.
Everyone,
See you soon.
see you soon.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.